When my son was 10 years old, this was just 15 years ago, he started to become a young man. And I thought, I don't really know how I'm supposed to do this. So I started to research 12 famous men and their mothers to try to glean some information on what was the best way to help produce genius. I did Disney, Walt Disney, Albert Einstein, Benjamin Franklin, George Gershwin, Howard Hughes, Norman Rockwell, Roy Rogers, Teddy Roosevelt, Walt Whitman, Frank Lloyd Wright, Fred Astaire, and George Washington Carver. After 10 years, I decided the stories were a little bit dry. You know, sometimes nonfiction can be dry. So I decided to use the same abilities that I have as a psychic. Since 1992, I have worked pro bono on murder cases all over the state, country, other countries. And the way I did it was I transported myself, sort of time travel, I guess you could call it, back to the murder and watched the murder happen and then gave the information from there. In that same way, I decided to time travel and interview these 12 women. Walt Disney had a mother who was very much in his corner. The worst thing was that his father would rip up his pictures. He always drew. His father didn't believe in toys, he was very strict, and had trouble keeping a job. Frank Lloyd Wright had a mother who always taught him he was going to be a great builder. Back then, they didn't call them architects, they called them builders. Walt Whitman's mother was a hoot. She is a big whiner, I can tell you that. I read 230 letters that she wrote to Walt. Now, Walt burned his letters, you know. He was a little bit risque at the time, and he thought it was best to burn his letters. They would write to each other almost every single day for their entire lives, whenever they weren't together. Anne Astaire was a momager. She was married to Fred's father, Fred. They lived in Omaha. When she was young, she came from a very strict Roman Catholic family, and her parents said that dancing was sinful. Howard Hughes' mother hated germs. Whew. She only wore white, and she thought germs were evil. She was a hand washer, had to keep everything clean, had to check Howard Hughes' body twice a day. He slept in a trundle bed next to her. Howard Sr. slept down the hall. George Gershwin had a brother, Ira, who wrote lyrics for their Broadway shows. And Ira was supposed to be the piano player. His mother, Rose, was a gambler. She played cards every day. She was the first woman in the United States to have cosmetic surgery. And she loved to party. They would have people over every single night. And she thought Ira was going to play piano. Well, they hoisted the piano up through the second-story window. And there goes George, playing like crazy. Ira said, I'm not doing this. I'll just write. Norman was a sort of a sickly child, so she liked to keep him close. She said, you're descended from noblemen, and her father and her brother were painters, and she said, you're going to be a painter, and you stay with Mama. Stay in the house with Mama and make your illustrations. So he basically did. All these women loved these young men. Women in history haven't been represented, but mothers will live on. Thank you. Thank you.